welcome everybody. I'm going to turn it over to Mike to start our talk about.
Talk about what? You're not the moderator?
Here's the mic.
We do have mics.
Yeah, so
You guys need them or you're loud enough? Okay.
So anyways, I would prefer to just open it right up to questions and let's just get into it unless anybody has any particular things that they would like to understand.
I'd like to hear a presentation from the
I'd like to hear a
candidates first,
presentation
and then
too.
ask questions.
Yeah, I would.
If you want to lead off.
No, you got the right idea, go for it.
Okay, all right. I'm running for the 3-year term selectman. You all remember the term that JFK said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Similar here, what can any of us do for the town of Douglas? I've got two folks running, I got Mike and I got Maxwell next to me. And they both bring attributes to the campaign. This is a fellow starting off. He's a paralegal, he's going to go to law school, he's got, I'm sure, bright ideas, he's got youth on his side. Mike, on this side of me, is an experienced contractor and has been involved in town government for a number of years. That leaves me. I have a lot of experience, not only in town government, but I guess in my professional career. I'm a graduate of Bowdoin College and Georgetown Law Center. I'm an attorney, I've been practicing for a number of years. My specialty is municipal law and municipal finance in general. Had sort of an unusual political career. I was on the school committee in Quincy, ran for a couple of offices. That was my save the world period when I thought I was going to make everything better and found out the world didn't necessarily want me to save it. I enjoyed what I was doing. I was a founder of the Boston law firm of Davis, Malm, and DeAugustine. There's about 40 lawyers in the firm right now. For a number of years, I worked in economic development for the South Shore Chamber of Commerce in Quincy, and I carried that over to my legal career. I've done hundreds of SBA loans, tax-exempt financing. And then I get back to an interest that I had a number of years ago in Russia and Eastern Europe. I started a video conferencing business between the United States hospitals and hospitals in Eastern Europe. Some of the folks here may be of Slovak descent. We had an operation in Slovakia where we had a video conference set up and cooperation between U.S. hospitals to improve their medical situation. So that was my Eastern Europe thing. Then I get back to my career and I've specialized in government incentives for business expansion. And I've done a lot of financing to assist companies' growth, and I've tried to put that to use for the town. My main emphasis is to try to broaden our tax base in town. When I got first involved, we were only getting like 6% of our tax revenues came from business. So the burden came back on your homeowners. And I think we've been successful, and Mike was on the board when we did it, and we supported a large development in town which is tripling our taxes from business. So I remember when we had the 2.5 bond override, and we made a promise that we were going to do, if we were going to increase taxes to cover our budget deficits, we were going to do something to increase our tax base. And I think we've done that. It's tripled. We have the biggest cash reserve that the town has ever had because of the permitting fees and the taxes being paid into the town. So I think what do I want to do? I want to get back on the Board of Selectmen. I've served there before. I've been involved in zoning and done everything else I can think of in the town. But I want to do something about our streets and roads, which are in terrible condition. We have a very small Department of Public Works that does a great job, but we're nickel and diming the improvements. I think we may have to do a bond issue to raise enough money so we can really make a significant improvement in our roads. So that's one of my primary things, to keep the taxes low on the residential homeowner, at the same time taking advantage of the new commercial tax base to do some of the things like road improvements that need to be done for the town. So I'm asking your support to get a 3-year term. They'll probably be my last term. I can easily sit out there with your folks. I'm sure by far I'm the oldest running candidate here. I'm going to put that experience, because as you get older, You get wisdom, and I think I'm
Your
getting
competition
wisdom.
with Leo.
I don't know about that. How old are you? 68. Oh, I'm way older than you. That's a youngster. Okay, that's it. I've given you my support. I asked for your support for one of the 2 votes that you have for selectmen and the 3-person race that we have. Thank you.
Hey, Hal, I'm last here. I'm gonna need a chair to sit down or take a nap.
There's one right in front of you. So, I'll take it off and then we'll work down the line.
Yep.
Great that you did these things all around the country. I'm concentrating on the town of Douglas. Since I've been involved in town government, whether it's on zoning, building and facilities, starting in 2013, I'm still on zoning as of today. I've been involved in the capital committee. I don't even know how many years it's been on that. I've been on the board of selectmen for the last 13. Over that time that I've been on there, I've managed to accomplish a few things. One of them being the special stabilization account, so we can save each year for our purchase of the fire trucks, because every 5 years, we're taking a large chunk of money. The last fire truck we bought was $750,000. What happens with that is it wipes out the entire capital budget for a year until you get to the next year. I also, speaking of the roads, worked on getting the $360,000 to match the $362,000 that we get from Chapter 90 money. Then the highway department also gets another $200,000 and change for crack repair and potholes and things like that. They use about $60,000 for the potholes. I would be a little cautious about going for a bond for the roads for the simple fact that the study that we had done in 2020 for the road conditions suggested that we spend $1.7 million a year for the next 20 years, roughly $30 million. 34 if you want to do the math. But since then, the increase has gone to 62.5%. If we just use $30 million for a figure, when we built the school, this is actual figures, you can use these. When we did the new elementary school, and we borrowed $23.5 million, we're going to be spending about $1.4 million a year up until 2032. If we're 50% more, that puts us at $20.1 million a year. We collect $21,590,000 and change on our what we receive from the taxpayers. That represents about 10%. So if we do a bond or a debt exclusion, that's the vehicle to get to the debt exclusion, you're going to add another 10% on top of the 2.5 levy that normally happens each year. At the same time, we're challenged with trying to come up with a way to construct the highway bond. We're putting you see trailers outside the fire department. We need to build an addition on that for their sleeping arrangements. We're doing the HVAC in there. This place is cramped. There's been conversations with Patrice, the town administrator, and myself as to how to meet the challenges that are happening in this building. I'd be a little cautious of getting indebted at this point until we have a better plan. It is true that we have additional money in our free cash account, which doesn't get certified until October typically, so you can't commit that money. But there is discussions about, on a temporary basis, maybe infusing the road program to get even more fixed. The roads are getting fixed. It's not that nothing is getting done. During the last couple of years, this happened to be a map of Douglas. You see all the green, those are the roads that are fixed. These small ones over here is what was done during the economic development that Bob and Eric got the MassWorks grant and the EDA grants to help fund those projects. I'd be a little cautious going any deeper into debt, other than what we can actually pay for at this point. With that, I've worked on an EMT program through the Blackstone Valley Tech that's going to start in this fall with no assessments to the town. We're struggling. We couldn't fill paramedic programs last year. With the conversation with the town administrator, we agreed that we should approach BVT. It was his suggestion that it's too bad they don't have that program. I offered to reached out. The study was done. It supported the need. and now they created a program. I can keep going on and on. There's a few other things, but I want to open up to the other guys.
All right, well, my name's Maxwell Postma. I'm the youngest by far of the people standing in front of you.
What do you mean?
You're definitely younger than me. You too, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
So I don't have the level of experience or the resume to match those standing up in front of me. But what I do have is a real vision for what I'd like to see Douglas as over the next 20 years. I know that I want to be around in this town. I want to see it and preserve the culture that we've built here. And I want to make it a place where people want to raise their families here. You can look, the new warehouse that they brought in, it's potentially going to bring a 18-wheeler coming through Douglas every minute and a half. The tax revenue is one thing. I think we've got to also understand the effect that'll have on our culture. I've been looking, I've worked with Lisa Mazinski on it, and bringing in a Community Preservation Act to protect these spaces that we know and love. This act would establish a volunteer board that gets money from the state and collects money from the town's revenue to preserve our spaces that we all love. That's ADA accessibility to public parks and public ways. That's building a better ballpark for the next kids. Parks for families to play in. If there's a minute and a half every truck's coming through Douglas, the kids can't play in the streets anymore, so we gotta find a place for them to go. So I think I have the best vision for culture in town. I hope you'll give me a chance to show you that on the board. I haven't had a time, I've only been on for a year. So I'd really like an ability to come in, to learn more, and be able to show you what I have. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Leo Lyons. Most of you in the room know me as Lee. But just to clarify this, there's 3 candidates here that you just heard from that are running for two open seats for selectmen. There's 2 candidates right here that you're going to hear from that are running for 1 open seat. We're not all running against each other. It's 2 separate selectmen races.
That'd be too much work for me and Hal.
First of all, happy Mother's Day to all.
Thank you.
And if there's some of you, which I can't believe there is, that don't know me, I'm Lee. I'm running for the 1-year seat on the Douglas Board of Selectmen. I've had a place on Bad Luck Lake for over 35 years. I worked for the post office for 35 years. I am recently retired 2 years ago. I'm currently on the Cemetery Commission and on the Library Board of Trustees. In the Cemetery Commission, I immediately contacted the Veterans Commission to get a flag put up in Center Cemetery because there wasn't a flag there. And I felt that there was a need for a flag to be there to honor our veterans. And that's why one of my points for running for selectmen is to get the Memorial Day parade back. I'm going to do everything in my power to get the Memorial Day parade back, which hasn't happened since 2018, 2019. And I've already been in contact with the vets, and I'm working on next year because there's not enough time for this year. It just wouldn't be a proper parade. As most of you know, I love this town, and I volunteer at the Douglas Food Pantry at St. Dennis Church. I want to advocate for you seniors, which I am one of. Any of your concerns. I will also work to bring back the parade and the roads. I want to do everything in my power to get more of the roads fixed quicker than what the plan is. But I understand it's very complicated, and I'm going to find out how complicated it is and see what I can do to speed it up. and thank you.
My name is Les Stevens. I'm running against Leo. Leo's a good guy, but I think we just have a different philosophy on a few items, not probably the whole list. I've been in this town for 45 years, grew up here, graduated here. So I was, involved in the community. I've raised money for the youth sports, have helped out with the local schools, have done all sorts of other programs, have served on boards and presented in front of multiple boards, and have worked with our state representative, Joe McKenna, as well as State Senator Ryan Fatman. So I want to see our town, move forward in the right direction, but we also have to look at, what's the priorities? We have to look at roads. We also have to, have a balance to help seniors that are living in their homes, that are living in this community, and offering service to them. And that sometimes is forgotten and throughout the course. We've got a lot of things to analyze and look through and kind of work together, bring some fresh ideas to the table, and continue moving forward. I was here when Senator Kennedy was here in front of the Jenks store. I was here when we had to fight the dump that was the mega dump that was gonna go in on Route 16. So there's, I've got a long track history of working in this community, helping this community, and moving forward. So I ask you for your vote on May 14th. Move forward from that.
I was told this was the lunch line. What happened? Thanks. So I guess I'm the non-sequitur here. I'm not running for selectman. I'm here by myself. I'm running for planning board. My name's Rich Preston. I've been a resident for 40 years. It seems it's gone by all too quick. I'm recently retired. I'm very happy about that. I don't know if my wife's as happy. I'm happy. So again, I'm running for planning board. It's a one-year term. There was a resignation. Recently, I was very involved with politics for about 25 years way back, doing this, that, and the other thing, including being on planning board for about 10 years and involved with the master plan. So I stepped away, and 15 years later, now that I'm retired, I have more time and I want to go back and I'd like to contribute. How many here, except you, excuse me, how many here know what planning board is except you too? Excuse me.
Yeah, I know, my husband was on it.
Do you know what they do? It's a quiz. This is a quiz, I'm sorry. Oops. The planning board is, has a tenant, planning board is one of the most influential boards in the town. Maybe not even second to selectmen. Because it's the one board that can truly affect your lives. But it has a tendency to run below the radar, except recently. The planning board does many things. Okay, first it's an elected board, so there's a lot of authority there, like the selectmen. They handle and oversee residential subdivisions. Any guesses how many subdivisions out there now? I'm sorry, too many?
Too many.
Good answer. 10. 10 subdivisions. I had to dig that out myself. 10 subdivisions in varying degrees of completion. Some are nearly complete, need to go to town meeting. Some have been abandoned, like one up on South Street, and there's all sorts of stuff in between. The planning board also does site plan review, which reviews industrial commercial development. That is huge. That used to be done by the Board of Appeals, the Zoning Board of Appeals. Should really be with zoning, it is now, but that gives them a tremendous amount of authority. So now we have, on the docket, if I'm not mistaken, there's at least 4 projects out there. 2 solar projects. There's one up on Oak Street. There's been some water issues. One up on Wallam Lake Road. There's also water issues there, even though it's complete. There's the cubes on Gilboa, which is a very, very big project. Also had some water issues there. That's a very big project. And there's one in the offing. That was mentioned earlier, and that's it's just a larger version of the cubes, but it's going to be on the Pine site. Now, we only have about 3 or 4% commercial taxes in this town, so there's always look to grow our commercial industrial tax base. But my concern is at what cost? We want that. We want to grow our tax base. But these large projects, and if you knew the numbers for this project coming in, you'd be surprised. It would dwarf the one across the street. But my biggest concern is that they're projecting from a state report that's going to be, as you mentioned, over 5,500 additional cars coming in and out of town. Now, it's going to be designed so these trucks and cars got to go out on 146, but nothing's directing them away from Route 16. You're talking about thousands of potential trucks blowing through Route 16 unless something changes so we can redirect that. And there's a big cost to that. Do you know what trucks do to roads? And also, you know, Route 16, there's some commercial. Route 16 is a residential road. Now, I live on Route 16, and some of those trucks come by, it sounds like thunder. Just yesterday, it was raining, and I hear rumble, rumble, rumble. The house shook. I thought it was thunder. Nope, big heavy trucks going by. So that's a concern. So we do residential subdivisions, we do commercial development, zoning, everything that affects your land, everything that you do can go to the planning board, and we can make those changes and then bring them to town meeting. That can affect your lives too. And we do special permits, accessory apartments, earth removal, which is one of my favorites. One of my concerns with earth removal is that last summer, my wife and I driving through town, I made the mistake of having my window down. It was like Oklahoma in the 30s. Yellow, orange dust everywhere. So I dug into it a bit and found that there are pits, and some will run better than others, and I don't want to be derogatory about any of these people running the pits. Too much open area. When you go in and you do earth removal, you're supposed to take some of you have to strip it down, do the earth removal, I've got 2 or 3 acres, then you have to reclaim it or restore it. But in the past, I'm sorry to say, and although I think they probably felt they were well-intentioned, they would waive some of the requirements, waive restoration. They would, you know, waive stocking all alone so that you can restore it. Waive a timetable. It was like a tsunami of waves. So that's why a year and a half ago, I got back into planning board. Now, I didn't run for an elected position. There were 2 appointed positions. They're called associate members. And you're appointed by the selectmen. The selectmen were good enough to appoint me to that position. And the idea is you can attend the meetings, but you can only vote if someone's absent. But you can participate in the dialogue, which for me is everything, that you can participate in that. And I've been able to participate for the last year and a half. You know, I've been able to have a meeting of the minds with other members, who I said most of the people are very well intentioned. We've also restarted our master plan program. Now that's something that I think is the most important thing that planning board does, is we develop and get past a master plan and then implement it. Carol has been very involved with that, right, Carol? From way back.
Way back
So we did the
again.
first, and you're back again.
My last term.
Glutton for punishment?
What's that?
Never say never, Carol.
Oh, I'd have to be lived to be 120, so.
Almost done here, sorry. So the master plan is really important. What it does is, and we did this in the 90s, the first go-around, it assesses your town today in terms of traffic and open space and recreation and all those things that are important to us. How to create a vibrant downtown. That's what I would like to see. You know, I'd like to see another Putnam and Douglas. I want to see a downtown where it's a destination. You go there because you want to, not because you have to. You know, outside dining, off-street parking. These are the type of things a master plan looks at. So we did that in the 90s. It was implemented. And now every 20 years, you've got to do it again. So now we're going to look at our town today. We got some funding recently at town meeting of $30,000. We're up for a grant for another $100,000. The reason we're up for that money is because we did the previous master plan and we implemented. They said, when we called them, they said, did you do anything last time? We said, yeah, we gave them a book that was put together by Paul Peterson, who was in the implementation committee. We gave them that book, they said, it's pretty much got the money. So we got funded $130,000 to do the master plan. We're going to be assessing our town, and we're also going to be looking at what we want to see it look like 20 years from now. And we're looking for 2 more people, if anybody's interested. It's a lot of fun. We're looking for 2 more people because it's mostly populated by boards, committee, commission members, but we want 3 at-large people. We have 1. We're looking for 2 more. If anybody's interested, you know anybody who's interested, you will not be bored. I think it's the most interested, lively committees out there. So that being said, that's what the planning board does. I have some experience. I didn't want to bore you with all the details. I was on planning board for 10 years before. Now that I'm back, I'd like to get involved again, and I would appreciate your support and vote on Tuesday. Thanks.
Short speech.
That's one of the things I'm already working on, not knowing whether I'm gonna win or lose.
But I heard you say just Memorial Day. What about the 4th of July?
I'll try it. Go ahead.
So I've been involved in the Memorial Day Parade. They used to practice parade there in Douglas, and then the second parade was either in Manchog or up in Worcester. So the first parade was ours, and then school would go up there, up to Worcester, or even through Manchog. So it's something that has to be revisited because, during budget cuts with the school as well as during COVID, there's no reason why we can't have the parade, considering we as a town, a portion of the revenue and budget goes to the school to look into that. And regarding the 4th of July, one of the last 4th of Julys we had, which was down at the ballpark with fireworks and stuff like that. And again, that has to be revisited for the cost of other, from expense and stuff like that. Other communities have raised half the money from private, corporations, donations and stuff like that, who want to, put out their banners and stuff like that. So if we can raise the half and then put the other half together with the town's budget, then we can, have some fireworks and stuff like that. It's definitely, I don't like driving, to another town to go look at fireworks when we should have them back in our town. That's the big thing there. So I
The
agree.
last 4th of July fireworks, I don't know if you remember, it was a thunderstorm came exactly when it was like World War I trench warfare. I was looking where my kids at the time and tried to get them all together. Yeah, I would like to have a fireworks again, and maybe we can voluntarily raise the money from business. We've got a couple of big businesses in town, maybe they would contribute, but I would love to see some fireworks and 4th of July parade revived again.
Thank you.
I guess I have a question for people that, probably specifically planning board. There is one development in town that I think I know about, that the state can override the town and put in developments whether you want them or not. So what do you do about that?
I think you're talking up on North Street.
Yeah.
It's called North Woods. That's one of the 10. There's a law called 40B. And under that state law, if every community has to meet at least 10% low to moderate income housing. If you don't meet that 10%, someone could come in, they get what's called a comprehensive permit, and it overrides our zoning. It's not a place you want to be.
So what are you doing about low, housing for seniors, or low-income housing? Is there anybody that's interested in that?
Is that to me?
I guess I'm not really thrilled about low-income housing, but more housing for the elderly and all that.
We're seeing more and more housing pressures all the time, and that's one of the things we're going to be talking about in master plan is low-income housing, but it's no easy trick. Who pays for that? How do you create low and moderate income housing? So it's not easy, but other communities do. Now, you can go online at the state and they'll show you who's met that 10% requirement. And I know some people on the planning board in Hopkinton, they're at 11, 12%. That's a fairly wealthy community, but they've gotten it done somehow. So we're going to be looking to people. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. People have done this. We can see what they're doing. But as long as we don't meet that 10%, we'll always be online for these big projects that are not within our control.
So one of the big criteria probably should be that you've got to meet that 10 or 12%, or we are going to have a lot more housing developments that you don't want.
Yeah. Just to correct Richard, it's North Brown versus North
North
Woods.
Brown?
Yeah,
It
it's
used to be North Woods, I think.
No, North Woods is a private
Okay.
road,
Alright,
but it's North Brown. I sat on the planning board for 10 years, in multiple communities, as well as Douglas here. To Richard's point, the 40B housing and stuff like that, it's forced upon towns. And now in communities that they're going through is they're putting up 5-story apartment condo complexes and stuff like that, tying into the railroad stations. But I think our community lacks senior housing, some form of senior housing. You go to the surrounding towns, they have senior housing. You know what I mean? So we have to work and probably find a good partnership where we can find senior affordable housing to be able to have seniors still stay in our town as well as stay in their homes. And we're not looking at those options today, and then we need to strongly consider those.
Richard, I have a question for you.
Oh dear.
Directed straight at you.
As you
Is there
plan-
lunch after this, though?
I hope so.
Told us lunch.
We had lunch before.
You missed lunch.
You were late. So my question is, as you plan for growth with all the developments and other forms of growth for the town, how do you plan on keeping the charm of Douglas by ensuring that open spaces remain?
Can you repeat the question for the audience? People in the back that couldn't hear a question.
I guess the question is, how do you retain the charm of the town and open space with growth?
Correct.
There's the trick. That's almost like, low-income housing. But there has been some discussion. There's no quick fix. What's happening is we're looking really attractive. Have you looked at the real estate values? Why is that? Because there's a lot of pressure from Metro Boston coming out this way. Housing prices have doubled and tripled. So as those pressures grow, people are going to come out here. We're going to look like the bargain, and they're going to buy up these lots and subdivisions. They're going to buy up land. You're going to have developers that want to come in. So we do have, I think it's about 25% plus, if I'm correct, of the state forest is
37.
set aside.
37.
Really? You're making that up.
You gotta pick in.
It's 35.
No, it's 35.
There's a big chunk of town.
25%.
I'm kidding. There's a big chunk of the town that's state forest open space. That's one of the zones, state forest open space. And we do have some conservation land. I don't know what the total acreage is. I don't know if Lisa Mazinski would know. But the more you can put aside for that, we have recreational facilities in town, and some land has been set aside for that. So that's what I'm saying is you want set aside. Because sometimes people think, well, you're picking out these properties, like some of the recreational areas, it's in the middle of nowhere. It's not going to be in the middle of nowhere in time when you have growth. So one of the things we talked about, and Carol, you were part of that conversation, is that where you have higher density, I like that, where you have higher density in the downtown area, then you change that so you can have mixed use downtown, like it used to be, where all those buildings downtown, there used to be residents up top and businesses down below. And in VR, you can open up a bit so that you can have higher density there, put more units. Instead of one every 20,000 square feet, you can put more units in. At the same time, we're talking about way out, where it's rural agricultural, it's 90,000 square feet, that you grow it and make that bigger, maybe 3 acres. So you concentrate in the downtown area for the higher density, but you keep those spaces open if you can, open up, or downzone if they call it, in those areas, and continue to keep an eye out for recreational and conservation land that we can set aside for future.
Has there been any thought to perhaps as you give approval for larger developments, both commercial or residential, that a certain portion of the acreage is set aside for greenways so that instead of just chunks?
We do have that
here
now
and
in our
there?
zoning that you can do it.
Okay.
There are options available.
But not,
At last year's special town meeting, there was a proposal to limit the number of building permits for a developer. We've had that in the past, and I think the proposal was fairly inartfully drawn and would not pass legal muster, so it was passed over. But I'm in favor of some sort of limit on the number of building permits anybody could have it in any one year. And I think the town will probably revisit that again, but it's got to be done just so, or it's going to be subject to a successful legal challenge.
So, yeah, just want to follow up with so we do have the flexible development bylaw in the planning board, and it does incentivize 60% of the surrounding land to be held for open space, and allows the developer a little more flexibility as well as the town. But there's a trade-off from both. Getting more of the open space. I think the minimum requirement is 50%, and then there's points to get the extra acreage, so about 10% of the development. And that's South Street. So we've only had, I believe, 2 projects that use the flexible development option recently.
so it's not, it's an option, it's not,
It's not.
It's an incentive option
Right.
to bring the parcels down to the small thing.
And it's rarely used, too. It's rarely used.
Correct.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So it's not appealing to the developers.
There's something,
Lisa?
So I think a lot of us here feel like we're already 20 years too late, because if your predictions or your sharing of data is predicting that kind of traffic flow, who's going to be able to move around downtown? So I'm looking from the candidates for some creative solutions. Do we have to move Main Street? because it just feels like this is a tidal wave coming at us and there's no solution. It's just, oh, we have to do what we have to do to accommodate these businesses. I want to hear from the selectmen candidates, what are you going to do so that we retain the power of our citizens to be able to dictate or decide what we want to happen?
And can I just make a comment? I think that's a wonderful point, Lisa. For every house that's being built in those subdivisions, you can estimate at least 2.6 children in that house. So for every 4 houses, you're looking at another classroom. The taxes that they pay, no matter how expensive their house is, does not cover another classroom teacher.
May I make a response to this lady? Because
Can we hear from the candidates, please?
you're 20 years out of date. That's what happened 20 years ago. We are now 500 children down in our school system than what we were 10 years ago. We're 32% down. The more that houses today are not producing those children, it is no longer 2 kids per household. It's like less than 1.
All right, well, I'm not gonna get into
Before we get too far off, if we can stick to the original question. So, everybody gets excited over certain things. As far as the downtown area, it's kind of, we're thinking after the fact, all right? We created this development, now we have truck traffic that's gonna be coming through town. It's not just us. On the other side of 146, which we own 9% of that, that's also another building that's gonna generate traffic. Then you go up to Serendipity, which is right off the 146 at the old exit 3, I don't know what it's called now. That has the building that's supposed to be used by Amazon. Then you go across the street in Campanelli's Park, you got Medline, you have another large warehouse, which is rumored to be another Amazon building. There's only one way to 395 to go to Southern Connecticut, and that's through the center of Douglas. I've been saying this right along since it started internally, obviously not out on Facebook and all that, because I'm not a big fan of posting on Facebook. We need to look at off-street parking to get the parking off of the center of town. Because you're not gonna be able to park there and have these trucks come through. We have to explore. There's different options that are out there. The land's owned by private individuals. There's also land owned by the town. There's something that we seriously need to look at. The impact from these developments, the one that Rich had mentioned that potentially could go into Pines Pit, that I think the traffic that's gonna come out of that site is about, it's either 84 or 9,400 vehicle trips per day. That's aside from all the other stuff. Okay? So it's a real challenge for us as a town. As Rich pointed out, that's a process that has to be identified in the planning end of things, because that's really the board that should be looking very closely at this. By the time it gets to the Board of Selectmen or any other board, it's well past where it should have been thought about originally. And I think that's what Rich is touching on, that's what he wants to bring to the table. I'm not campaigning for him, I'm just pointing out the fact. But that's where it starts, right? We have a challenge in front of us. Yes, we needed economic development because the town was suffering for such a long time. We were very close to receivership back prior, the 2.5 override, threats of closing all these things. That's just a reality. If you run out of money, you just can't do all the stuff that you need to do. We're fortunate right now that we have a few extra pennies to do things, but we are by no means rich. It has to be spent properly, or we're gonna put ourselves right back into the same position we were in 2017.
You know, life is full of difficult choices. If you go back a few years, we did the 2.5 override. If that hadn't happened, you would have had more layoffs in the schools. There was a proposal to close the library, and there were other town services that were going to be curtailed. So we made the difficult choice of encouraging economic development in the cubes at Gilboa. We have designed the traffic so that the trucks will go on to 146. Now, possible that somebody might not observe that. We have a situation we could do some police enforcement of that as well. But, you know, it's not easy. We'd love to have a Microsoft come in and put their facility with just people with high incomes and have pretty shops downtown, but that's not where it is. What we've got to do is to get some basic economic development, which we've got. Now we can be more selective in future. The project that Richard was talking about, that one should have very, very careful scrutiny because we've already made a commitment to a large development. But, you know, people want services, but we got to pay for it, and we don't want to burden the homeowner. So if we can get business to come in there, but no doubt about it, traffic is the main concern with any of these facilities. But we've got our basic revenue covered now. We've tripled what we had before. So we can be more selective in bringing the right companies that will leave us open space and have a better life for everybody.
So I think one of the biggest problems that comes with downtown is the traffic that flows through. One big thing we can do to truly affect at least some of the residential traffic is to encourage more walkability of our town. We have a lot of sidewalks that aren't particularly well maintained, even if they exist at all. I think pushing forward with sidewalks as well as off-street parking can help reduce a lot of the traffic coming through downtown. In regards to the cubes, I don't know how many of you have driven past that bridge, but there's nothing stopping it from turning left. It's going to be all on the town to come in and regulate, making sure that those trucks don't turn left. That's another expense. If you have to put an officer out there, it's another expense. Right now, I think we have to be more careful going forward with the rest of the plans. That's what I'm going to bring to the board. I'm going to be more careful, ask more questions, and ensure that these types of traffic are directed the way that we want them to be.
I agree with the off-street parking, especially in downtown. But listening to all this, because I'm new to all this, I don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes for all this development, but I wonder if there's a way to keep these buildings that are going to have all these trucks coming in and out policed by themselves without charging the town, our police department, or Whitensville's police department, or Sudbury's police department. Is there a way to make the company big shots, so to speak, police that themselves, or they'll be fined by us at the town? I don't know if that's an option, but it's an idea.
So I've got a question, a couple of questions for you. So,
Did I just finish? Sorry.
are you done?
No,
I'm
you didn't
done.
start. Yeah, just if you
Go
could,
ahead.
just give Les a chance to
That's all,
respond.
sorry. Yeah. Just regarding the warehouses, in each of the warehouses' decisions, what we're seeing really is some of the Amazon traffic as well as Medline. In their decisions, it specifically called out about traffic going through Douglas and stuff like that. When we did the cubes and met with them, we talked about actually monitoring their trucks and their traffic to see if they're, because there's supposed to be a limited percentage of traffic coming through if there was one that accidentally turns. We actually have maps to show them which way to go to 395, which would be more beneficial to them. So those things were put in those decisions upon agreeing to let them build these facilities. So, this has to be sat down with the, other selectmen in those communities to revisit and talk about, hey, we're seeing too much traffic, what's going on here? I mean, because we've dealt with that with Medline. We've seen Medline trucks and Amazon trucks that shouldn't be coming through and using this as a shortcut through. Regarding the road improvements and stuff like that, the town's putting, 21 cents towards the improvements. It can be a higher percentage to help improve our roads in our areas there. Trying to preserve the downtown, it definitely has to be a priority because, we shop downtown, we live downtown, we, get our mail downtown. We can't, be overburdened with a continuous flow of truck traffic that's unnecessary. So, go ahead, Howard.
So thank all of you for coming. I mean, I know that you're not doing this because you're getting paid a lot for this. And,
We're not?
You're not, no.
Oh.
And, I kind of view Douglas as having the perfect storm right now. I mean, everyone's working remotely for the most part, so they can live wherever they want. And we're really attractive. We're between Boston Rhode Island, and, you know, I understand that the pressure of trying to bring more revenue in, and what's done is done. You've already got, you know, the base. I want to understand, I think, Hal, you mentioned that you got about $21 million of revenue from residents, is that correct?
No, I had said it. That's what we collect from the taxpayers, is $21,590,000, and I don't remember the pennies.
And how much from the commercial aspect?
How much of that is commercial?
Yes.
What are we, about 6 or 8%
Now,
now?
it was 6%, now it's gonna be tripled when it's fully
Got
put
it.
on the books.
That one
So it'll be
building's gonna
18.
triple?
Yeah.
Got it. And you can't really, you know, take any of that money from the general fund until October, is that what happens?
Well, money's coming in already. It was well over $1 million, $1.5 million, I think, for permit fees that were paid already to the town. And the building is now taxable, even though it's vacant at the moment. It is subject to property taxes by the town based on the replacement value of the building.
And just out of curiosity, I mean, I see these massive buildings, I'm not seeing a lot of traffic flow coming out of them yet. So when do you think that's gonna start happening?
Don't ask for it.
So,
You're gonna
so
regret it when
the
it happens.
Tri-Town, which is across the highway, across from Pine.
Yes.
That, they're leasing out 80% of that building right now.
80% leased out now?
It's going to be, yeah, leasing, so they're starting to see flow. Amazon started to open up and started, there's supposed to be a return center. If you drive down there at 4 o'clock, which I did the other day, you know, I end up seeing like, 20 cars leave. You know, also, companies are encouraging their employees to go back to work at least 3 to 5 days because they're losing the tax incentives and stuff like that. So that's causing more traffic on the roads as well.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we have to come together with, good ideas. How do we move forward? How do we make, preserve our town and have that balance there? So the tax money coming in is going to help, but at the same time, I think our taxpayers, need to kind of see some type of benefit and some type of relief and stuff like that.
Is there a way to restrict certain types of vehicles from coming through the center of Douglas?
So when we did the Cube, I was on the planning board when we did the Cube warehouse came before us and stuff like that, and that's one of the things that we talked about was monitoring the trucks as well, because the Tri-Town's supposed to be vans and shuttles. So in their decision, it does talk about monitoring traffic. So that has to, be looked at on a basis, monthly or annual basis.
So I'll help answer that question for you. First of all, because DOT prevents you from restricting truck traffic because of commerce, okay? During their decision that he's referring to, if they find that there's an issue, they're gonna give us $250,000. That's like me giving you $5.
Right. That's
Right?
nothing.
It's not gonna do anything. As far as directing the traffic, so I get on 146, I drive up to Central Turnpike, go down Central Turnpike, get on 395 to go south, or do I take a right, I go down to the next exit, turn around, come up Davis Street?
Right.
I'm gonna take a right, go up. Medline does it now, right? They jump on the highway, they get off, they park across the street at Lackey Dam Shell, grab their coffee, whatever they're gonna grab, and take off and go through the center of town. You're not gonna stop it. So that's too late, right? That happens during the planning process. It is what it is, we needed the help, we took whatever help we can get. Now we gotta live with it, now we gotta figure out how to deal with it. The only way you can deal with it is come up with creative ways, whether it's off-street parking, addressing sidewalks, as Maxwell had suggested, something like that. But to look at the company and say, well, we're gonna stop your traffic, or we're gonna put in a rotary, it's not gonna stop it. You can't stop it. It's against the DOT rules. You cannot interfere with commerce. We have a big problem when on the Oktoberfest, shutting down the roads for one day. And that came about because they were directing the traffic down behind the Goodness Store, down, what's that, C Street? A Street? B Street, whatever it is, A, B, C, something. And then taking a left across Mechanic Street Bridge. The problem is that's a 12-ton bridge. That's 24,000 pounds. The tractor that's pulling the truck is 30,000 pounds. So I asked a simple question, are we covered under our insurance by having public safety directing trucks over that bridge and we have a catastrophic failure? The answer was no, that's why it stopped, right? Because there's a potential problem. So we're gonna have to figure out a way to deal with it. Nobody has the magic answer, everybody has ideas. And they're pretty similar ideas, just gotta figure out how to do it.
So
But
let me
can't
ask you one
stop the
final
traffic.
question. What if you made it so onerous that it wasn't feasible to go through town for some of these big trucks. I don't like the idea of having a lot of stoplights. We don't have many in town right now, but.
We only have 2 blinking lights.
Yes, and I love that
Everybody in
about
this room would
Douglas.
like to keep it that way.
But you could,
That's the one thing we'll all agree on? No.
yes, but you could make it difficult for tractor trailers by having a multitude of different stoplights going through the center of Douglas.
That would be a great idea for the first hour and a half, and then everybody would be trying to find out who came up with that idea. And
That
probably
was
take
me.
them up to the common and string them up on a tree.
Yeah.
No, it's just one of the ideas, right? So it's, it's not a dumb idea, it's an idea, right? So that's what has to happen. And a lot of that has to happen with planning board. From him back this way, it doesn't affect us really. We have input into it. As a selectman, you're a road commissioner, you have some input on things, you have control about road closures and stuff like that. But planning is the planning board. So,
Trucking was always our major concern with the cubes at Gilboa. But the selectmen unanimously worked on that project, supported our request to the state to get approximately $10 million in federal and state aid to put in the infrastructure, because we were desperate. Unfortunately, we're not in an urban area where a lot of other companies or white-collar type of jobs would be available. So we took advantage of what we had to keep the town in a strong financial position. Now we're in a position that we can be quite a bit more choosy, and I would say that other projects that should get even a closer review than perhaps the cubes did. But, you know, life is full of difficult choices, and we want to keep the schools open, we want to keep the library open. Tough decisions had to be made.
yeah, unfortunately, you're talking about scrutinizing the businesses coming forward after the cubes. It's already drawn in the sand what's going in the Pines. It's going to be another almost triple the size trucking company, or somehow some type of warehouse going in there. They've already gone through the planning board, they've already gone through the state processes for all their approvals. Now they're ready to actually apply for permits with the town of Douglas. I think the horse has already left the barn on that particular job. I don't think we could turn around and tell them, no, you can only have a corporate park in there now. I think they already have their mindset as to what they're gonna do. Mr. Marsh, you had a question?
You, actually. So, I couldn't help myself, so as a former selectman, I want to ask the candidates, because we have some folks that are new, actually stepping in to get onto the Board of Selectmen. You're in a unique position, one that myself, when I first run, would have killed to have been in. You're posed with a lot of difficult challenges now because the town actually has a budget to be able to go forward and look at doing roads, infrastructure, beautification of the downtown. And those are all well and good things to do. But like anything else that bases off of the economy and inflation and the way the cost of living and things go up, at some point in time, you're not gonna have that same luxury. And you're gonna have to make difficult decisions as to what do we keep open, what do we fund, what don't we fund? And how comfortable do you guys feel if tomorrow we flip a switch and Douglas isn't sitting on $1.5 million of free cash? What decisions do you guys start looking at, and how comfortable do you feel having to make them? Or, what's even worse, is having to be in the position that I was in, is coming forward to all these wonderful taxpayers, being genuinely afraid they're gonna come and burn my house down because I'm asking for a Proposition 2.5 override, which is a realism that's gonna happen to any Board of Selectmen that sits out there. Inflation is much larger than the 2.5% that we grow. So at some point in time, even with bringing in economic development, even with $1 million in building permits, when the time comes, how comfortable do you guys feel with that? Or do you start making choices as to what do you cut, and if you do, what would it be?
Being broke is easy, because the answer is no to everything.
Yes, it is.
So, that was the easy part that you had at the beginning. The only challenge you had was how to get yourself out of the hole, right? So now we're out of the hole. This is an even bigger problem. Because now you're trying to figure out what you're supposed to fund and what you're not supposed to fund, and where you should put money, whether you bond roads and whether you do this. The smart thing to do is you treat it like your own personal finances, right? If you got a little bit of overtime this week, you don't go out and buy a new car because you don't have the overtime next week. There's no guarantee, right? Let this stuff get settled in, figure out where we're actually at on a temporary basis, maybe one of the potential thought processes is infuse the road repairs, right? And why I say a temporary basis, because if the bottom falls out, late 80s, 2008, and now all have the same things in common. Inflated prices, high interest rates. The first two failed, so I don't have a lot of faith in the third one, right? So we need to be in a position that we can still provide the services that we need. And that's what that extra cushion of money should be for, right? Until we know exactly where we're at, right? When you get your first overtime check, it's easy to say, oh, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. Settle down a little bit and figure out what's the best plan. Hopefully that answers your question for me.
I do think we have quite a lean government. For example, the highway department, 4 people. 4 people do a tremendous, I had a conduit down the road in Orange Street, and they did that. I would have thought something, they would have had to bring an independent contractor. So we kept the library going. I think our DPW is pretty tight. Same with the other departments. Yeah, we may have to cut sometime in the future, but you know, that we should do some other, one thing we've had a problem with, and you know this, Kevin, is the state forest. 25% of the town is in state forest. What do we get from the state for that? About what, $250,000 a year?
Or $45 an acre.
45, good point.
Oh, no problem.
$45 an acre. So we need some legislative pressure to try to recognize that we're supporting the rest of the Commonwealth by having this wonderful recreational facility there. And Douglas residents have to wait in line potentially to get in or use the other facilities there. So we've had some, as Kevin knows, we've had some tussle back and forth with the state, and they've given us some recompense back, but not enough. But that's a burden that we can share for the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts by having so much of our land not available for taxes.
So I think,
One second, let us go through these guys first.
while
We'll get
we
back to
sit in a time where we are financially viable as a town, is the time that we make these sort of improvements that pay out dividends when the economy turns bad. If our roads are really well suited, that could be one of the first things you look to cut. If they're prepared for it, you can pull back on that. If we've done the work right now, while we're economically stable, we prepare these roads so that over the next 10, 15, 20 years, these roads are going to last, and we build it in a way that they last. We improve our infrastructure so that we encourage people to move to our town in a way that makes sense for our culture and for the way that we want to build our town. And then, as the economy dips, we know we still have a valid tax base, and we don't have to make as much cuts as we otherwise would. And then when the time comes that we have to make cuts, if we've done the work on our roads right now, we can feel comfortable cutting back in the future.
First of all, I would make sure we prioritize what is most important to the town right now with the little bit of extra money. And I say little bit because there's so many things that need to be done, and there's not enough money to do them all. So let's prioritize what we need, what's most important right now, and not let it get to 2.5 override again, ever. And just be a little thrifty right now so we can build up, so we can get more things done.
Somebody mentioned before Putnam, Connecticut. If you haven't been there, it's a great place. It's an old mill town with restaurants, a theater, bars, and a lot of antique places. You know, we don't have all the resources to be Putnam, but we're probably better located, so maybe on a mini basis. And we've tried to do something with the old elementary school, and nothing has happened with that. Personally, I'd give it to somebody if there was a housing development or some sort of commercial, just to get it maybe and get something happening there and get some new tax revenue from that property. So we've looked at it without success, but it would be nice to revisit that again.
There is something happening even as we speak.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Correct.
you want to share it?
No,
Well, wait a minute,
I'm familiar with what's going on with the old schoolhouse. Again, the town has, you know, we have abandoned buildings that we're not utilizing as footprints, you know, that we're spending money year after year maintaining buildings that are dilapidated, falling down. So if that money can be repurposed to in another direction, in another area to help prolong things. We've got departments, you know what I mean, such as the highway department, with four guys to maintain all the roads here. I mean, it doesn't, you know, they've been struggling for help for a while. We've got a water department and a sewer department with the minimum staff. So, you know, when we bring in, businesses come in, and there's areas along Route 16, you know, east that open up, where there's another business, it's being able to kind of still provide services and increase that. You know, going back and you know, spending money in some directions in the wrong way will impact you years down the road. And that's what really is crucial about, you know, this decision, you know, going forward from May 14th and on, is how do you want it? I'm one of 4 taxpayers that are running for selectmen. You know, I've paid, you know, tax for a number of years, as well as the other candidates, you know, such Max. So I know what it's like to be in your shoes, you know, and what is not come about is you have a reassessment coming because the value has gone up, you know, and there has to be a little bit of a you know, a way of spending money in the appropriate way, as well as saving for the future, so when there is a rainy day. So that's where we stand, and that's where we need to go forward. You know, you look at, you know, just the senior center with 2 staff members. You look at, you know, the highway with 4 members there. You know, this department's there of need. You know, town's getting additional revenue coming in. You know, this department's that need to raise their hands, and it can't be always, you know, going in a, you know, a direction that's not helping out the other departments along the way. The other departments need help as well. So we can't continue just to focus on one area.
Okay, just give me 2 seconds and I'm going to introduce Jake. I just want to clarify something that was said twice. Highway Department actually has 6 members. They're down 1. We had 3 that were recently retired in the last year, and that's what reduced it down to 4, but they brought it back up to 6. They got 1 more spot to fill, and that's going to happen after January. So you can only put so many people in that little building. We get them a bigger building, you can put as many people as you want. But with that being said, I would like to introduce Jake Donatic. He's the other person running for the planning board. If you want to speak a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just
Thank everybody for the opportunity to come and speak today.
Yep.
I see some familiar faces, but I'm Jake Donatic, lifelong resident of Douglas, and hopefully a member of the planning board, but to answer any questions and try to as much as possible.
We got a little off track. Did anybody have any questions you heard from Rich about the planning board? Do you have any planning board questions for Jake?
Can I make one quick comment?
Go ahead.
Sure.
Do you like the shirt? Oh.
No, actually. We should come up with a bylaw against the shirt, but
I was thinking the same thing when I looked at that.
this is for veterans, dude. Come on.
Okay.
You're getting yourself in trouble.
Okay. I thought it was just a message that you keep moving.
Yeah, it is. It is.
All right, go ahead.
First of all, like, honestly, thank you to everybody that's running for an elected position here in town. As somebody that served the board for a long time, where we did a lot of appointments, volunteerism isn't something that you see an awful lot of in town. A lot of these boards and commissions struggle to try and get people onto them. So anytime you have somebody that's willing to sacrifice their time, bring fresh ideas into the town, and do that for the betterment of the community, it's something that's honorable and commendable. Each one of these candidates is more than qualified to be able to move forward with things. So it's finding someone that best aligns with your ideals and where you'd like to see the town go. But regardless, the current board that's sitting is doing a fantastic job. I had a great time and a privilege serving with Hal for many years. Same thing with Max and with Mike. I know Les from around town. It's my first time meeting this gentleman, but you kind of had me when you said you wanted to do more for veteran services. I'm a veteran myself, so thank you very much. And to the folks running for planning board, you know, obviously, thank you for stepping up to try and make the community, and pardon my voice, trying to make the community a better place and looking into the future. So it's important. Thank you all.
Thanks, Kevin. All right, Carol, 1 minute.
I have a question, you know, about downtown development and stuff, and you know, an idea's been kicked around for a long time. There's like a river walk along the river, and I actually talked to Jerry Jackman at one time because he owns right on the corner of Mechanic Street, and I think it's, I don't know, it's A Street, B Street,
yeah,
B Street.
on the other side of the river.
And he said that he would be, if he was allowed to develop a little bit of that area for parking, that he would certainly be amenable to people using it who wanted to go on a river walk. The problem is, it appears that because of the rivers bill and stuff like that, there's not much that can be done with that. And I was wondering if any of you think of any way that we might be able to do something like that. I don't know, talk to people in Boston or somewhere to be able to develop something like that.
That would be something you could look into, unfortunately, that falls under the Conservation Act, that's the Clean River Act of 1986, that prohibits any work within the 200 feet from a river. But there's a way around everything, right? So, there's also another strip of land on the other side of the river, and that's what I was alluding to before without calling it out, but there's a big parcel out there, and that could potentially lead itself to a downtown parking area that will allow people to access Main Street.
Where is that park?
I think it goes all the way from Jackman's all the way down behind the Goodness Store. There's a big strip of land.
Yeah, which is the parcel that Jackman owns and stuff like that.
You own on this side of the river as well?
Yeah.
All the way up to the Goodness Store?
Yes, he owns on the backside, yeah, where B Street is. The river walk in certain communities, you can go see those. They were established years ago before conservation and stuff like that. There's ones down in Providence and multiple communities, as well as in Connecticut as well. Those were established, when they had the granite and they put the walkways in so people could enjoy the rivers and stuff like that. The Mumford wasn't as attractive, as it could be possibly in the future and stuff like that for walks. But I think there's, always looking at how do we, work with partnerships and someone who wants to bring an idea forward that's attractive to the community and beneficial to the community, as well as trying to preserve our small town.
To follow up on that, the Manchog has a nice little river walk, and they did that after the rivers bill, so how'd they get away with it?
Yeah, that's a conservation and a planning board question.
Come to the open space
Yeah,
committee. We'll be happy to talk about it.
Just for everybody's benefit, I'm just going to help moderate this a little bit, and I just want to move the questions along before we all lose interest. Shirley, you had a question?
I have comments and mostly comments, because everything,
Wait a minute, do we allow comments?
Yes.
Go ahead.
having been involved in this community for a number of years, official positions, school committee, selectmen, I've heard every one of these things over. Even the river walk. We heard it, and we tried. So getting back to present, and I'm so glad to see people involved and willing to run for office. I'm finally seeing things, people taking so-called the bull by the horns and doing and proposing and getting things moving, like Mike did with the safety committee buildings, the fire department, the police department, the highway department, because every one of those buildings are in need. And being on the building and facilities, we did a tour. And what they were looking, the selectmen were looking for is recommendations as to which should be worked on first, or what can, the recommendations, and it's up to the selectmen to look at the funds with the finance people to see how much and what can be done.
It was a tight race with the highway one.
The highway one, my building and facilities committee was like, there's no question. The highway department is in great need. And that's what we recommended. But the fire department also needed some work, because people are having to stay there now. There's more need because of our growth, more people on duty. So they've got a tough job. And it's not easy to make choices. My question also...
Not always popular either.
That's right. And how much? I used to ask, and where's the money coming from? I wasn't the most popular person, believe me. But getting back to, industry, and I'm not opposed to it, as long as it's brought in, and right now it shows there's some problems with traffic. But when, I can't, you know, we can't go and spend what we haven't got, as has been mentioned. When is the cubes coming online? When is it going to have businesses in? Because I think people are saying, oh, we got business. We're gonna be wealthy. When? And there's been how many breakthroughs with the water situation and problems with Uxbridge down there and on Oak Street, problems with the solar, and again, it's water. And again, it's affecting roads. So, comments, anybody?
The cubes is fully taxable now. It's a completed
Taxable
building.
for the building.
Yeah. What else would it be taxable on?
Excise on the equipment or whatever else.
Yeah. So it's not, so the other thing that I think was not captured, and I want to share this with you, is that when the Cubes project went forward, there's no TIF agreement, there's no tax agreement with the town. So it's a full tax rate. So they're not getting a discount and stuff like that, they're paying a full tax rate, which is a benefit there. There's been one water issue that I'm aware of that, you know, due to the heavy rains, and we've had multiple, you know, maybe 5+ 100-year storms. Some, you know, 3 within 2 weeks of each other. You know, we don't control the weather. Nobody controls the weather. But it's, you know, unexpected, and you know, and we have to deal with, you know, what has to be better in place and things have to be looked at. But at the end of the day, the revenues coming in from that facility, when they lease the space and they're looking for a lease, you know, someone to lease the space, you know, then there'll be, you know, probably additional tax dollars that will be coming back to the town. So.
Bye, Mom. Good luck with her.
That's it. Mike,
Anybody else have any
closing?
questions? What's that?
We're doing closing or something?
No. Just want to make sure nobody has any questions. Anybody else? Yep, go ahead, Mr. Skinner.
I think most of us have heard the old joke about how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. We know that there's a bottleneck out here opposite Goodness and China's. Why don't we put up no parking signs there? Why don't we do something to get off-street parking in that area right now?
Well, we gotta get the off-street parking before we can put up the no parking signs. But,
Then do it. Do something.
all right.
You know it's a bottleneck right now.
It's not as easy as snapping your fingers. It requires,
Make it happen.
easier said than done there.
I have a question for the selectmen and the candidates.
Yeah.
Do we still own the elementary school residence solar?
Yes, we do.
We still don't.
Please don't sell it.
That's right.
Property downtown like that can become invaluable. That property can be low-income housing, it could be whatever we want it to be. I don't know why it isn't yet. I tried years ago. It is difficult to get through the project. We tried. We tried, surely.
I don't think
But
anybody wants
it
to
did-
dispose of it unless
but-
it's going to be used for something of value.
We did an engineering review of all the buildings 20 years ago. They said that was the strongest building in the lot, even compared to the new buildings. So please don't give that building away. And you can put off-street parking there too, because one of the, as we discussed, if you want a vibrant downtown, you do need a river walk. You need something to bring people there, but you need off-street parking, and we can use that for off-street parking. At
We
least
spent
part of it.
$100,000 on the new roof years ago for the,
Yeah, right.
The only problem is that roof's going out now.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Well, thank you all.
Well, yeah,
Are you gonna give closing remarks?
thank you.
The only thing I can say is the only thing I'll promise you is to continue to work as hard as I have been. Keep fighting for the needs of the town and do the best I can with it. And remember to vote on May 14th because it's gonna count.
And I would like to build on the contributions I've already made, and I lived in a few places, but Douglas is my home. I've lived here longer than any other place that I've lived, and I want to keep it charming, but I want to be able to pay our bills at the same time.
So I've only served for a year. I'm incredibly thankful for having that ability and the trust you've put in to me to allow me to have that ability. I'd like a full term to really explore. I spent this last year, I did a lot of learning. I sat back and really took it all in. I'd really like to now transfer that learning that I've done over this past year and really put it into something useful. I've lived in this town my entire life. I graduated from Douglas High School. I built the flower boxes around the World War II Memorial for my Eagle Scout project. I love this town, and I'd really like to be a part of how it grows over the next 20 years. So, thank you.
I'd appreciate your vote, and if I do get elected, I will be transparent, and I will listen to everybody, and I will do my best to get all your concerns taken care of as best I can. So thank you.
Yeah, first I want to thank you for having us out here. It's been a great time, really great sharing back and forth, exchange. So, you know, I would appreciate your vote on May 14th. You know, I've gone and have door knocked over 200 plus homeowners, have visited multiple associations and reached out to multiple groups throughout the whole time. I've been in the community for 45 years. Been helping, you know, with the youth sports program as well as the schools, and now with the planning board last 5 years, and then now I'm looking to help be your voice as a taxpayer on this stuff.
Well, I guess closing remarks, I'd like to say it's well past my nap time, and I'm very disappointed. Okay? But what I'd like to say is this: what I never forget, if I'm on an elected board or any board, commission, or committee, is why I'm there. Seriously, it sounds patronizing, but when I sit in that seat on the planning board, I'm there for the elected residents of this town. And it's interesting because we've had special permits and other things go by the boards before me and some during, and I was the lone voice that I wanted to protect the residents around that particular application, whether it's earth removal or what have you, or any other application that comes by the board, because quite often I feel like they're well-intentioned, but people become very familiar with the people that come in the door, and they'll ask for all these waivers. Well, there's a reason that they're in the bylaws. Someone wrote those bylaws and said, we want to protect the citizens of the town and the people around these projects, so that's why we're putting these in. So I read the bylaws. I like to read them. I actually read them. And it says, you can waive all the requirements, but you probably shouldn't. Whoever wrote them were very clever. You probably shouldn't do it. And if you do it, it specifically says, only if it's in the best interest of the residents of the town. How many are going to meet that criteria? So all I can tell you is, I don't forget why I'm there for you, and I hope you support me.
So in closing, I'd like to say thank you. Sorry for the late arrival today. Work constraints kind of unfortunately got in the way. But I do value all of your attendance today. In short, I've lived in life, lifelong resident of Douglas. I've volunteered throughout the town throughout the years. Seeking the opportunity to sit on a board and continue my contribution to the town, whatever facet that may be. Planning board within that purview of protecting both the applicant and the neighbors and all the taxpayers within the town. Not to expand upon what Mr. Preston said, but we're all tax-paying residents. We all have rights. So at the end of the day, from the applicant to neighbors, every voice should be heard and thought out, and common sense decisions should be made within that bylaw. Unfortunately, I'm not the best public speaker, and I apologize for that as well.
You're not alone.
Yeah, that's the first time, so, well, not the first time, at least it's high school anyway, but, if elected, you know, that's an open door policy. If anyone has any questions, I do also tend to read the bylaws and the zoning in town, just to make sure that, you know, each board is communicating with the other, and make sure that the outcome is respectable for everybody that pays taxes and calls Douglas home.
Thank you all for coming.